Welcome back to another edition of the CIO Water Cooler, where these sessions will recreate those water cooler conversations between peers and their colleagues. And we offer an intimate and less formal discussion for a group of experts who share their expertise and best practices. And please remember, subscribe to the CIO Water Cooler YouTube channel and check out the CIO website for all the latest content. But enough from me. Let's get today's conversation started. So today we're talking about the importance of unified communications, especially around customers' evolving expectations and how they're leading to service experiences and improved service experiences. And I have three great panellists who will help me bring this topic to life today. So to begin with, Philippa, can you tell the viewers a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, I'm Philippa Morgan. I work for VMO2, which is the combined Virgin Media Business and O2 organisation. And I am head of voice and collaboration. So I have a team of subject matter experts, specialists in voice and collaboration, working with our large enterprise and public sector customers to take them on that digital transformation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Philippa. And Mike, could you just tell everyone watching a little about who you are and what you do too?
Yeah, hello. I'm Mike Cook. I'm head of IT for Sheffield City Trust. It's a not-for-profit organisation. We operate in the leisure and entertainment sector. So we've got a large portfolio of leisure venues, golf courses, and even a 13,500-seater concert venue.
And Simone, last but by no means least, could you tell everyone listening a little about you too?
Yes, of course. Morning, everyone. My name's Simone Thomas and I work for Cheshire West and Chester Council. I'm the strategic lead for data and systems in the organisation, with a focus mainly on people-based services. So we manage our social care application on behalf of the business and our education system, but we also do a lot of exciting work around data, particularly, again, around our people services. So looking at better data management and starting to look at some predictive work as well around new analytical models.
Fantastic. And I'm quite excited to get the three of you on here today because we've all been on a big journey over the last 2 to 3 years. And at the very start of the pandemic, even the CEO of Microsoft admitted that they had experienced 2 years of digital transformation in just 2 months. But since then, Philippa, your research with the Centre for Economics and Business Research revealed that the pandemic had accelerated digital progress in the public sector by more than 4 years. So Philippa, can you expand on some of those findings?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's really amazing, isn't it, that when forced to do something, how quickly organisations of all types can actually do something and change something, to be able to deliver. I think, our research has shown that actually in a very short space of time, most public sector organisations have expedited their plans for digital transformation in very short timescales. I think, however, that statement actually underestimates the challenge that most public sector organisations actually faced in actually having to expedite their digital transformation. And I think our finding proved that whilst as a general statement, public sector did enhance their digital transformation at very high speed, I think the underlying statistics and information showed that actually it was more challenging within certain public sector environments to actually make that change. So the information showed that actually in the blue light and the general local government area, they actually were quite well advanced already with their digital transformation prior to pandemic. So actually for them, reacting to the pandemic was less of a challenge, but it was obviously far more of a challenge within education and the National Health Service to actually make that digital transformation. I think it's also worth probably pointing out exactly what we mean by digital transformation, because I think it's quite personal to most organisations what that actually looks like. And I think Simone could probably have some really, really interesting things to say about this one, because I think for me, digital transformation is all about not only the experience of the employees, how you can enhance the experience of the employees to support the new working model, but also how that changes the experience that the citizens or consumers have. And for me, digital transformation is about moving more of their services ultimately online. But what goes with moving services online is the availability of the information to allow the user, the consumer, the citizen to actually make the right choices. So I think a lot of that is driven by data, to be honest, is where the data is, accessing the data, how me as a consumer can access the data, how an employee can access the data, and where that data is held, the applications that ultimately allow me as an employee or as a citizen to access the information that I need to access to do my job or to get the results that I want to get, and the underlying connectivity that ultimately delivers that data to people. So actually, as a statement, as I say, it's quite a bold statement, but in reality, what it didn't show was the actual challenge that organisations had in making those changes.
And Simone, can I bring you in on this? Can you expand on some of the insights that you've experienced?
Yes, of course. And actually, my role was slightly different as we went into the pandemic. It was more focused on some operational areas of IT, and I found myself delivering a new online experience for members to deliver their committee meetings, because previously all committee meetings were held in person, and then all of a sudden we needed to continue with the democratic process and maintain the business of the council in that sense. And obviously there were a lot more meetings that members were being asked to attend themselves online as well to support frontline service delivery. So that whole programme of enabling members, they'd been used to having iPads or those kind of lightweight devices to manage their business, and then all of a sudden we had to sort of upgrade them to have a full laptop experience, joining meetings through Teams, and that was, it had to happen. Picking up on Philippa's point, we just had to do stuff. So that was a really interesting process, and of course it enabled a lot more of the community to get involved in seeing the democratic process, viewing the meetings online, and engaging with that in a real-time sense, not necessarily just watching a recording after the event. So that was an interesting take on it. But yeah, data, absolutely, the need for data has just sort of rocketed, and the pandemic has really, really promoted that. But I think as well, what we've tried to do is maintain the correct governance around that process as well, because whilst we all had a huge need to deliver more data more quickly to the people who needed it, we still had to do that in a robust and resilient way to protect people's privacy and manage it correctly. So standing all of that up at high speed whilst maintaining all the right governance around what we should and shouldn't be doing was a challenge. It really was. But from a more employee experience, moving, I know we'll come on to talk about this a little bit more, but moving to hybrid working, for example, we already had plans in place. We were moving to a flexible working approach, but then of course we just had to switch overnight and enable everybody to work in an entirely different way. So I think without technology and without a unified approach to delivering services, the struggle would have been huge. But it has also demonstrated that it's not right for everybody. And again, I suppose the more sort of personal aspects of that and the health and well-being side of things as well, we can probably touch on a little later. But actually being able to deliver the transformation needed was incredibly hard, and people were working all sorts of ridiculous hours to try and make sure business continued, but we could do it, and I think is a testament to the efforts of the industry and the employees to actually make that happen.
And Mike, I suspect so much of that resonates with you. So I'm curious, what were your biggest challenges and almost being forced to work completely differently, almost overnight, and serve your audience differently as well? What were your biggest challenges there?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can relate completely to the research from Microsoft and Virgin Media. We had plans to migrate to Office 365, for example. We've been working towards it for quite some time. March 2020, those plans were just literally ripped up and thrown out the window because we had to just deal with everything straight away. Our biggest challenge really was the fact that every single one of our venues, our 16 venues, had to close, literally. Closed to the public. We couldn't do anything. Events were getting cancelled. So, for example, the leisure facilities, all the school children that had got swimming lessons booked, all that kind of thing. We've got other coaching programs, ice skating. All the lessons got cancelled. So it was not just about helping our staff who were forced to isolate themselves in their own homes, but also the communications with all of our customers, our service users. So massive challenges. Our biggest communication tool really was our website. So it was making sure that we were very, very quick to put information online and guide everybody there so they knew what was happening every step of the way. From a worker point of view, when the furlough scheme was announced, there was a lot of pressure to furlough as many people as possible, but there was still a core element of staff working to keep everybody going. And IT, I think really, I don't want to blow our own trumpet in a sense, but we were quite very, very busy supplying laptops, sending laptops out to people's home addresses, talking to them, dealing with them remotely, getting them all set up for working so that they could continue to do their jobs. Big challenge, but where there's a will, there's a way. At the end of the day, it happened because it had to happen. We didn't really have any choice in the matter.
And listening to the three of you there, I think it just highlights how the lines between B2B, B2C, public and private sectors are almost blurring as there's this increasing expectation for every company to service citizens via voice, website and social channels, depending on whichever device anyone's got closest to hand, whether that be a customer or somebody in the workplace. So I'm curious, how do you see these evolving expectations leading to improved service experiences? And Simone, I'll ask that to you first.
Yes, this is a really interesting one for us because I think we have to be accessible to our residents and we have to support them in the ways they need to have services delivered to them. Obviously delivering an online service, a good quality online service is absolutely fundamental in this day and age, and social media channels, using all of those effectively as well is really important. But of course they all need managing, and not everybody can engage with us in that way. Some residents that we support need a lot more help, support and engagement. So I think what's interesting for me is the fact that this technology has allowed us to deliver or be more present for our residents in the locations that they need to see us in. We've got a lot of community buildings around the borough. We work from partner locations as well. We work very closely with the health service and a lot of other third sector organisations as well. So whilst connectivity is absolutely key to being able to do that, the fact that we can go and work from another location and have everything we need to deliver a frontline service where residents will want to engage with us and also still be connected, I think is hugely important. So in a very strange way, the technology has helped us be more present for residents to deliver a face-to-face service as well, which to me is quite an interesting outcome from what is essentially a technical solution.
And Philippa, I know that the subject of communicating through voice, website and social channels, I know this is something you're incredibly passionate about. So can I ask that you share some of your insights too?
Yeah, this is actually my favourite topic, by the way.
Yeah.
So in the industry, I guess we call this omni-channel, which is about delivering services through multiple channels. And for me, it's really, really interesting. I think it's about understanding who your customer base is, who your audience is. And I make this quite personal in some respects, that if you look at my family generationally, my mother would only ever want to transact anything that she does, either face-to-face or by telephone. She would resist using any form of technology to transact. I sit in the middle, and actually I think I'm probably the best of it because I'm prepared to transact in multiple different ways, dependent upon my need. So, I will do web chat, I will, voice, online, you name it, I will give it a go. So for me, it's about, I will transact in any way dependent upon what my current need is. And that might be voice, it might be, I might do something over the internet, I might web chat, but I'm prepared to interact in multiple ways. And then I have a teenage son who absolutely doesn't speak to me, never mind an organisation. So in reality, he only wants to transact by probably not even web chat or email. I think he actually said to me once, "Mum, email is so last year," because he absolutely only wants to transact in terms of social media. So I badge that as WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, etc. That's the way for him he will want to transact, and I would anticipate that will not change. His generation will only ever want to transact that way. So I actually think it's quite a challenge for organisations because they very fully need to understand their audience, and they need to understand how the individuals want to transact and be able to provide that service. So I think it's a big challenge for organisations. I think what Simone said, which was really interesting and something that I potentially not considered, is I think of it in terms of technology, but actually it's really interesting to see by having an approach that allows people to transact in any way they choose, it's actually benefited the face-to-face. Because I generally don't think of face-to-face really as a channel so much. So it's really interesting to see that actually it's enhanced that ability for people to transact face-to-face. I think understanding your audience really, again, CEBRE have done some research for us, and actually in reality, how people transact does fit incredibly well with the demographics of the country. So as you would anticipate, younger people want to transact differently. We still have a lot of digital exclusion within the UK. So, those types of individuals might want to interact face to face. So actually big challenges, but actually I think technology can ultimately enable those challenges by, integrating it fully into your unified communications.
And Mike, as the world opened back up, suddenly you had the very nice problem of serving 13,000 people in a large venue. And of course, there were so many different questions around what are my requirements? Do I need to wear a mask? Do I need a COVID pass? So how do you deliver all that? How do you communicate those messages and also improve the experience of everyone that's going there? It sounded like a huge challenge at the time.
Definitely, yes. I think certainly the arena customers for those events in such a large volume of people. Communication's key, absolutely key. Making sure we've got accurate information specific to every single event, and events can make different requests depending on the type of audience. Whether it's a seated show, whether it's a standing show, all that kind of thing. So the bulk of the information definitely, vast majority via the website, via our ticketing partners' website, and then still, as Philippa says, and Simone as well, different generations want to interact in different ways. So it's very, very important making sure that we've got the different channels available. There is still somebody at the end of a phone that will pick up and answer a query, even if it's only a seemingly minor query. It's making sure that we can provide relevant information so that when people do attend for an event, everybody's prepared. The customer's prepared and the staff on site as well.
And if we switch to the workplace itself now, where everybody's working differently, we've gone through remote working, now we're exploring hybrid working. And Philippa, I know you've been speaking to so many different businesses all over the country. So I'm curious, how do you see demand by employees for hybrid working actually evolving further and beginning to dictate changes in the workplace, who are now demanding greater flexibility, especially after the trend of the great resignation, for example?
It's interesting, isn't it? I was thinking about this morning, and in the job that I do, we're always talking about transformation, moving on to the next step. And it feels not so long ago that one of the things that was always a barrier to transformation in organisations was the cultural change that would be needed to actually move into that collaboration. And it doesn't seem that long ago that one of the biggest challenges to us was always trying to support customers to understand how they could make that transition, their employees could make that transition. And I guess it goes back to if you have to do something, it turns out you can do it. So it's really interesting that we've switched the conversation now, rather than from how do our employees cope with that, to our employees now demanding that we cope with that. I think to the point that Simone made, hybrid working is so personal, isn't it? It isn't one size fits all. It's so personal to the individual, and actually, I think in some respects, I suppose it depends what sort of job you do. But in reality, I think if you look at most organisations where you have what predominantly would have been an office-based group of staff now who want to work from different places, either home, in the office, even a Starbucks. You see a lot of that now, don't you? I like Starbucks coffee, so yeah, I'd quite like to work in a Starbucks every now and then. But as a user of services now, I demand that I can totally work anywhere at any point I want. I think there's some great advantages to that in some respects for businesses, in that because I am prepared to work anywhere on any device. I think that's the other thing. I think now devices are no longer relevant in how we work. So if I'm sat at a desk, I might still use a traditional phone. I probably won't, but in reality, I'll probably use a headset, soft phone. I might use my mobile. So I actually think technology enables users to be able to communicate wherever they are on whatever device they want to use. So I think that's a great advantage for me as an employee. I think as an employer, one of the great advantages of hybrid working is because I am prepared to be engaged and involved in my job role. Actually, I think it means that I'm more productive. I don't have to do the commute some days. I can work from home some days. I can be mobile, and I can equally, in my role, I can be sat in my car on my iPad and update some of our systems because I've got Wi-Fi connectivity, I've got cellular cover. I can actually do my job in reality from anywhere, but equally at any point of the day. So I'm no longer now 9 to 5. I've actually moved on, and I can do my job during the working day when I need other people, but equally when I don't need other people to be involved in what I do, I can actually do my job at any time that suits me as well. So as I say, hybrid working is really important. It's really personal. Technology enables hybrid working, but I guess it goes back to the discussion we had earlier around who is your audience and what does hybrid working look like to you as an individual, because you are going to have some people who want to be in the office 9 to 5 every day, and you are going to want some people who want to be at home most of the time. So I think it's the challenges of balancing, getting the best out of your individual to deliver their job. Yeah.
It's such an interesting space right now. I know there's many countries as well that are also opening up their borders and encouraging people to go work there for a few months. And my son, who's working at a Gen Z company, their team are on about working in Indonesia for a month because they can. And it's so interesting how it's evolving. And I'm curious, Simone, what are you seeing around how hybrid working is almost putting control back in the employees' hands rather than the employers. But what are you seeing there?
Yes, I mean, pre-pandemic, we were already on a programme to introduce flexible and mobile working. So we would have hybrid meetings where we'd have a group of people in a room and we'd have a speakerphone, and somebody would dial in to the call, through the software, which worked well. But then obviously everybody worked from home through the pandemic. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. We had a lot of frontline staff still working incredibly hard to support our residents, our vulnerable adults, our vulnerable children, and those services couldn't stop. So we did have people still in the offices, but much reduced. But of course, now coming back, we are looking to hybrid meetings. We've moved to a different building since the pandemic. It's a more modern, fit for purpose building with reduced space. So I think the organisation has taken the approach that flexibility is key. There is room for people who do want to be in the office 9 to 5 most days, as Philippa described. But then a lot of us, will go in maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on the needs, to get together with our teams and actually have in-person collaboration sessions. It's very much based around the needs of the role each of us is doing, which is great. And I think the only reason we're able to do that is because the culture of the organisation is supportive of that approach, right from the chief executive through the management, the leadership team, and heads of service, down through the organisation. We are all supportive of people to work in that way, in the way that best suits them to be most effective. I mean, certainly for me personally, I've found I'm so much more effective having that flexibility, without the rigid 9 to 5 wasted hours of commute in the car, and just being able to be flexible about how we work and when we work, and having a much better balance to life as well. And I think it is what people want to see. I think there are things about the pandemic that they won't want to lose. A whole lot of it we will, and I think that's clear. But having a better balance around all your family commitments, and your personal interests, as well as delivering a really robust job, because that's what we have to do. We've had people ask, can they work? Can they go and work from say their parents' house in another country for so much of the time, and then work from this country for other parts of the time. We haven't quite got to that stage yet. That's not something we're able to consider from a data protection point of view. All our data has to remain in the UK. So we have those kind of restrictions in place. But aside from that, we are very flexible about where our staff are based. And I think that helps us retain the right skills and experience and capability, because people will be looking around and looking to see where the opportunities are that fit with their ethos of how they want to work now, in this new world.
And Mike, how have you leveraged technology to meet these demands for greater flexibility?
Well, it's. I'll give you a really good example. At our head office, 2.5 years ago, before the pandemic, 60 staff in there, all desk-based. Look at it now, rather than people having PCs, everybody's been given a laptop, and on any given day, there's no more than a dozen people in there at any one time. That's a massive change. And again, to echo both Philippa and Simone, it's that flexibility. People work around their own individual circumstances, and we've used technology to enable that, and it's probably made people more productive and more efficient, because it's a good motivator as well. If you're working around your own particular life, whether you've got family commitments or whatever else, and as Philippa said, you can choose to work other hours when you don't need to interact with any of your colleagues around the business. And that's made a significant change to us as an organisation. I wouldn't have thought we'd have got here like we have done the journey. Yeah, it's been difficult. It's been a very difficult journey. But where we are now, it's incredible, really incredible transformation that we've seen.
It's interesting, actually. There's some stats that CBR produced and published fairly recently that actually says that as a result of the transformation that's taken place during the pandemic and where we are now, employee productivity is up by about 5.7%. Employee engagement, which I think is really critical, is up by 4.3%. But actually the knock-on effect of that is actually our customers believe that their customer experience is increased, and the stat around that is about 4.9% increase in better customer experience from our customers because of the way we do things differently now. And I guess it all stems from employees being more engaged and more productive, the knock-on effect on, the customer. So yeah.
And I'll throw in one more stat there. I recently read that 98% of meetings will now contain at least one person that's not in the office. So just to bring us home here, Philippa, what role do you see unified communications playing in improving everything that we've talked about, from moving away from analogue phone lines, service quality, hybrid working, productivity and work-life balance? There's so much to go at there, but what role do you see unified communications playing in all this?
So unified communications is a term, and I won't give away how long I've been in this industry, but unified communications is a term that has been around for so long. And in reality, when it first started, what it actually meant was people on the telephone having conversations with a little bit of presence. So, you've got a view about whether people are available to speak to you. But actually, that had moved substantially pre the pandemic, but actually throughout the pandemic, the role that unified communications has taken on is totally different. So now in reality, it's more about collaboration necessarily than conversation. So actually the role of unified communications, if you take what we're doing now, we're having a video call, we can all see each other, we can all have conversation. Equally, in a UC world, we could be sharing a file, we could all be working on a presentation at the same time. We could all upload files and contribute to those files in such an easy way. So actually UC is more about collaboration now. And I actually think to support hybrid working, it's had to evolve into collaboration. We're all based at home. We're not all in a room anymore. We can't all, fill out the same spreadsheet, etc. So actually unified communications and collaboration now underpins the need for hybrid working, but also our need, because we're not all sat in a room together and I can't just shout over to somebody and ask them a question. My ability to be on this call but be having another conversation in the background where I'm getting answers to questions, etc. So technology and unified communication is underpinning our new way of working. It makes us, I've just talked about productivity stats. Obviously that ability to collaborate in that way has enhanced our productivity, but also it's enhanced our ability to deliver services to the customer.
And I think with the analogue switch off on the horizon, users will increasingly turn to things like voice, web, social channels, depending on what device they have to hand. And they all demand these better experience. And of course, in the workplace, UC technology will continue to help productivity, collaboration, and hopefully finally unlocking that better work-life balance. So much food for thought. So a big thank you to you, Philippa, Mike and Simone, for bringing this topic to life today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've heard from myself today and also three fantastic panellists in Philippa, Mike and Simone. But I'd love to keep this conversation going. So please visit the CIO WaterCooler website, hit the contact button, let us know your insights, your experiences over the last few years. And remember to consume other videos that might spark some inspiration in you too. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel where we'll keep you updated with the latest content. But more than anything, just thank you for being a part of today's CIO WaterCooler.